Not too bad yourself. Not too bad, you? Yeah. Howdy, number one dad.
So, last time we said.
You want small?
Yeah. That's for our guests.
Which is Angie.
Right. So I came with it
Okay. Got it.
after you originally sent it to you, and so I was like, yeah. But I got that, and it was like the next day, you called me something. I'm not available.
Yeah, no, yeah. What's up?
So, oh, okay.
So. You watching your dad go to work here? Yeah. Critique.
I tried to convince my kids to come tonight, and we asked if there were snacks. I said, no, and he said, pass. I was like, you only come if there's snacks.
So you get a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yes, please.
Anybody else?
I mean, it's great.
Okay.
Jason, do you need one or no?
Thank you.
Good.
Oh, you mean on the phone? No, I did. He said, one second.
Hi, Angie. Captain. So on the video board today. There's a picture of you on the video board today. We better-
Oh,
better
my grandpa,
picture.
yeah. Funny enough, I was flying out to Vegas from work that day. And he was taking off for his summer flight.
Oh, really? My grandpa got to go on that too. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no more shit.
You said that this morning, Casey. My grandfather just passed away last fall. He was 97. He was in World War II.
Oh, wow.
And said they're going quickly. He was in the Navy.
That's not good.
My dad's dad was in the Navy too, but
Even if you were just a kid, you're pushing them.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating to read some of these stories because we, for Christmas last year, for my mom's dad, my dad's family, or my grandpa. And I had.
Oh, yeah.
Get like a baby or something like that, and it's like, stop, you know, but I just got up in my house. Whatever, and had a whole story of my grandpa. She died because he was gay.
Okay, that's other.
Yeah, it's,
The other kind of culture of it.
whatever reason, the babies have to, yeah, legal first day, went out.
It is.
But anyway, that's
Yeah.
how, and then she had to go across and tell somebody that.
John.
Starting to feel it, just because it's hard to walk, you know, feel your leg. We're getting there. Yeah. It's just starting today. Yeah. It's the back of my calf and the bottom of my foot that are completely numb. I can start walking instead without a walker. Or cane or whatever. Well, I have a walker. I didn't have to purchase anything, so they have a walker. Used the walker last week or the week before for the Colorado here. And then use it for real the next week, but 4 days later. Yeah. Actually, no, it's from when I originally did this. I had to. I found the ice broke.
I haven't seen it yet.
Right after they did it. They have good stability. They made it. Yeah.
What's up? Let's do some. You're back.
I told my son I was coming, he's like, "You going back to school?"
It's been a long day. Yeah.
Okay, I have 7:00 and I will call the meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first agenda item are persons wishing to address the school board who are not on the agenda. Okay,
For those that don't know me, I'm Melinda Tudor. I'm not a public speaker, and we're trying to do this before I orally turn my words. So, good evening, school board members. I just want to recognize the high school marching band, Mrs. Pulsher, and Mr. Michael Sharp with All State Choir today. So the high school marching band and color guard, under the direction of Mrs. Pulsher, had 4 competitions this year: Arlington, Beersford, Chester, and Boca. Congratulations for their second place wins at all 4 competitions. Also, congrats to the drum majors and color guard, bringing home the best of awards in Beersford. Not all competitions recognize the color guard and drum majors, so that was a specialty. The middle school marching band also competed in Beersford and Volga, and also did an amazing job, even after their bus broke down both times. So accolades to them. Thank you to Mrs. Pulsher for all she does for the middle school and high school band. Some more recent fine arts events did include All-State Choir. We had 8 of our high school students attend, 3 of which are 4-year members, meaning they went freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year. Their concert was on Saturday, November 2nd at the Premier Center and was aired live on the South Dakota Public Broadcasting schedule. If you missed it, it will re-air on Thanksgiving Day. Thank you to Mr. Michael Scheck for taking time to help record and submit pieces to be adjudicated. He doesn't score them himself, he sends them out, so it's a third party to do that. And I thank him for the time he takes to make sure our students know their music. If you don't know, a foursome could be asked to sing by memory at least one, if not all the pieces. So, we also had 4 students participate in Augustana's Band Festival this last weekend. And I just want to thank, the administration and those who teach our kids for all that they do for the music department and their willingness to encourage our students to push them musically, whether it's here or external. Thank you.
thank you. Very good comments. Is there anybody else wishing to address the school board who is not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we just need, are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
Okay, then we just need an approval of the agenda.
All second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Are there any new conflict of interest disclosures? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Anybody has any questions on the consent agenda? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We'll make a motion to approve consent agenda.
Okay. There's no other discussion. There's now a motion made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item is old business. First item in old business is our strategic plan.
Did you guys want to take this, just talk a little bit about what we just did? Or?
Yeah, so we just had a sort of a pre-meeting meeting, because we love meetings. Dr. Moore just got the survey questions, and they're nearly final form this morning, so I gave them a chance to push that out to everybody. as the committee or whatever, we just talked over that piece and about the segregation. Who's gonna get you the survey questions, and if there are any major changes or whatever. So we just said, take care of it and we'll get them out. I think you're hoping to get them out by early next week.
Yeah, so I got them this morning. It's always tough to get things on Monday or the day of the board meeting and get them out to everybody. And I've been talking to these two all day long. So I got all of those this morning. We've had a chance to look at most of them. I think Jason's got a couple to look at over. A few grammatical things. We've had a couple additions and we reworded maybe a couple questions, but for the most part, they look pretty good. I think our intentions now are to get them out to you all so you can see them. And then maybe by Friday, if you have any changes or you guys want to add something, just let me know. And we can make some of those changes. And then by Friday, we could get them back to Tom and say, yeah, we're good to go, finalize them. And then next week, we can start disseminating them. The staff one, the student one, parent, even the community is going to be fairly straightforward, pretty simple. I can take care of most of that. Going to need a little assistance on the alumni one because clearly that's going to have to be kind of a social media, Facebook. We'll get it out to our staff and say, hey, send this to people that you know, especially if you have sons or daughters that are alumni. Get them out there and have them share it with people. But I'll need a little assistance with that one. Karen said she'll help me with the piece. Anyway, that's kind of the plan. So when you get those tomorrow or maybe later this evening, depending when you get done here, take a look at them over the next few days. No emergency, it doesn't have to be right away. But I'd say by Friday, if you can give me some feedback by Friday.
So just for the general public, the process we went to, just to give everybody kind of an idea. So the company we're using as a consulting firm has done this numerous times. So we started with a baseline product that's been vetted previously. And we looked at it as a school board and as a strategic planning committee. And then there's this small focus group that consisted of educators and administrators to kind of narrow down what we wanted to accomplish. And then we're kind of in the final phase of that, where we're looking at the final points of the survey questions before we go out. So that's how the process is going so far. And I would just like to reiterate what Dr. DeBoer said. Everybody who's listening, everybody who's present, I'm going to challenge you. Get one alumni that you know personally to fill out that alumni survey. All right, that's going to be our sticky wicket, as they say, somewhere overseas. And every little bit can help. So that's one of those things where you're going to have to ask the person you know personally if we're going to get this done. So I appreciate that.
And in addition to that too, just please fill out the parent survey and the community survey because we are looking for feedback that we can use. And I think everybody is entitled to their own opinion, but I think we may find some really valuable information as a board that we can use moving forward strategically.
Quick question regarding the alumni. Is there a time period that they're recommending stay with them?
So they do, so for the other survey demographics, we're going to try to get the survey out and back in within 2 weeks. I did ask that we keep the alumni survey open basically kind of through Christmas break, so that when the kids are home from school, they have an opportunity to ask them in person. But we'd like to get all the data back basically before the survey proceeds.
So like ages wise, like should we not like alumni older than 5 years past high school? Well, we asked for 5 years, but when they put the survey monkey out, I went to 10 years out. So.
Okay. We didn't know, is there a question on there? Did they graduate or something? Okay. So that way at least you get some perspective. If somebody that graduated 9 years ago is going to have maybe a different opinion than somebody who graduated a year ago. For sure. Perfect. Okay, any other discussion on that? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Tremco roofing timeline update.
So I met with Tremco, Mr. Silvernail and I did. We had 5 contractors at that meeting. Pretty straight. Really wasn't much of a meeting. It was basically them explaining the contract what it was. Took them around, walked on the roof, and gave them opportunities so that they could ask questions when they start bidding the project. Bids will be then due the 20th of. Let me make sure. The 21st of November. They said they don't like to extend it, but of course, if somebody that really wants to bid it wants a day or two, they maybe would. But right, it's the 21st of December that bids will be back. As soon as we get those bids back, they're actually emailing them to me. And then once we get them all back, we'll have a meeting with Tremco and then my facilities committee and kind of go through those and do a recommendation to the board who we want to choose for that project. So
You said December 21st.
December 21st is when they're due back. Yep. And then we'll set a meeting sometime in the next, within a few days of that. So that's kind of it. That's the update there. We'll know more in a week or so.
Okay, there's no other questions on that. The next agenda item is new business. The first item of new business is the second reading of policy KL, KL-E, 123, KL.
Yeah, so we would need an approval for those. If you guys have had a chance to take a look at them, we'll certainly take your questions. I fixed a few of the grammatical errors that we talked about last time. I did read, Kim and I kind of went through this a little bit. I think there was a question on, why it was worded maybe a little different on a couple of those parts. Our understanding is that essentially it's worded different because one of them is a complaint process that's started and it's not about the superintendent, and the other one is a hearing and it's actually a complaint against the superintendent. That's why there's a couple of different processes there. So we didn't change that. Okay, so those are the only changes that we were talking about last time. Unless there's anything else that you guys want to discuss.
Was that the grammatical change where the difference is wrong or the difference, like, I don't agree with? Was that the one you're referencing?
No, there was a piece in there, where it was involving the Board of Education in the hearing process, and then there was a piece where it was not. And it was
Like hiring or selecting somebody
for the
outside of the board to
Yes.
run the hearing.
So when we last met talking, that I remember that part of the discussion, but I'd also brought up on because there's the initial document where you make the complaint, and on the next document, it's like, I don't agree with, keep moving forward in the process. And the word was, why the decision was wrong versus I disagree.
Right. And I made that change on the other Word document.
Okay.
That was on one of those, that's on one of those forms that they fill out, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, if there's any debate on that, otherwise we need a motion to approve the second reading of the policies.
I will make that motion.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded to approve the policies. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item is the first reading of policy GCQAA.
You guys want to take these, or do you need a roll, or?
Doesn't matter, yeah. So the GCQAA we looked at, and we don't feel like this is a policy that will really be used a whole lot anymore. But we did feel like it kind of held, some guidelines on the decision-making policy, and we liked how it spelled out if somebody was going out to do outside consulting that would interfere with their normal duties, that the person that is contacting them would pay for the substitute teacher and those kinds of things. And we didn't see any conflicts with the policy. So our recommendation on this is that it's just read and reviewed and it remains the same.
38 years later to about the day. November 10th, 1986.
Does that happen? Very often.
Not as much anymore. I kind of look at this as kind of a protection from some moonlighting type things. I think our tutor policy covers some of the things that happen more often than maybe this does. But from time to time, there may be somebody that works for a consulting firm, but we don't see it quite as much anymore. My guess is that this probably happened and they needed to address it's something that happened right away, but that's just the case. But we kind of talked through the ones that we've talked through, this is the one that could still be applicable in the future maybe. So we just thought, let's just mark it as reviewed and move forward, keep it. Again, these are first readings, so we don't need any approval on these.
Okay. And then all the rest of them, and as you can see in your packet, it tells you like if it's been replaced by a different policy or if it's covered in a different area. So essentially, we're recommending that these policies are all just removed. They're out of date and no longer applicable.
And I believe I sent you guys some rationale via email on that, so I won't worry with those details, but most of these are either covered in the handbook, negotiated agreement, or they just don't exist. Like chapter 1 doesn't even exist anymore. So.
And like the program for gifted students, we felt like that was not going
Any questions or anything on those?
No, I guess your reasoning made sense where they're connected elsewhere, but your recommendation is to just go away with them. I have no reason but to support that. That all made sense why they're doing.
And we still need to go through the second reading.
Yeah, we'll still have to, just in case anybody wanted to take a look at them and say, well.
Okay. So the next one.
Okay.
Go for it, Karen.
Okay, so there's been a lot of talk about updating our cell phone policy that is kind of a concern of teachers and whatnot, just trying to manage it and having a clear, consistent cell phone policy. So this is what we have come up with thus far.
Yeah, take a look at this, read through it, digest it, talk amongst your peers, see what they think. I've talked with my high school advisory council, high school principal. That if you just look at the culture of where we're moving in cell phones, a number of districts are moving away from just open use. I really look at it as the right thing to do for our kids. Our kids are distracted by their phones. The best I can give an example that was given to us a few years ago is just imagine trying to learn and figure out how to study when you're getting poked in the ribs every 15 seconds. Because that's what our cell phones are doing when they buzz and buzz and buzz. And the open kind of just use them when you want to use them or when we're not busy or educationally, it just doesn't work. I can walk down a hallway, I think my students here can attest to this, and you're going to see people on their cell phones every day. This room is really bad. And I just truly believe it's the right thing to do for our kids. They're distractions. They're limiting what they can do. They're hindering some of what our teachers can do. There's a lot of inconsistencies on how we're policing it right now. That's probably the biggest thing is let's come up with something that's consistent. I have shared this with my advisory, high school advisory group as well. So they're taking a look at it and it's going from there. So just take a look and see what you guys think and bounce it off some of your people and we'll go from there.
Some of the things that we considered, so we looked at several of the area schools' cell phone policies, and Gettysburg was all in the news with the pouches and things, and we looked at that, but there's a lot of issues with pouches. There's a cost issue. You have, like the manning of the pouches issue, and kids are obviously very smart, and they've already figured out how to get around the pouches. So that was kind of, where we thought that wasn't really the approach that we wanted to go.
It's going to be a change in mindset regardless how we want to go down this road. We've also tried to figure out how is this going to be the easiest for our staff to police we're not in this to punish students, and that's one thing Mr. Denning and I both agreed on. This is not something we want to do, oh, here's a detention and ISS. That's not the point. The point is we want to help our kids be able to learn more or learn more effectively. We want to help them socialize better. We want to help them with their mental health. This is not a punishment thing. This is going to be a situation where, listen, if we have to tell you once, we're going to start taking them away. If we have to tell you a few more times, we're going to keep them until your parents come. I mean, that's kind of a progressive look there. It's not about, the punishment as far as detentions, and I don't even know if we have detentions really anymore. So it's not about that. It's more about just, let's develop a culture here where the phones aren't being distractions. We kind of put in their backpacks, put them away, turn them off, put them in your backpacks. Our students just don't use their lockers very often. So we think by them being able to keep them, they're their possessions, they're in their backpack, it's off. We're not taking them from them, making them be, 100 yards away from them. I understand it's kind of a security thing. But I feel like it's pretty fair. I really do. So take a look. Yep.
We also felt like we're kind of meeting in the middle. We're not letting them use it at all during the day. We get a lot of lunch periods, before and after school. So they still have the opportunity to check their food, but we're taking out off campus privileges so that just needs to be during class and classes.
We talked a little bit about passing periods too, like can they have them in pass periods? And the issue with that becomes enforcing. And if our staff members don't really know when they're supposed to have them and when they aren't supposed to have them, and now they can have them during passing time, or are they going to the bathroom, or are they where are they at? Now it just becomes another thing where we have to try to figure out whether they should have them. If it's just you don't have them between 8:30 and 11:30, now we know. If you have them out, hey, Gavin, put it away, or give it to me, or we'll figure that out, right? Sorry, Gavin. So it's just easier it's easier for our staff to be consistent in enforcing it if we just put it down, for that part. So anyway, again, take a look. Our goal would be to have our first reading now, second reading December. Start this right away, second semester. Again, not just nabbing phones, but at least kind of talking through it with the kids. Mr. Denning and I talked about having a little assembly before we leave for Christmas break, explaining what we're going to maybe do if this passes. Talking through that and say this is, we're doing this because we care about you, not because we don't like you. I mean, this is more about we're trying to help your learning, help you socialize, help mental health, and I really don't think it's be an issue. If you look at what's going on in some of these schools, and if you talk to the kids that are in these schools that don't have it anymore, the kids almost feel like they're relieved that they don't have to have it out. They don't have the pressure to have it out. Again, it might be one of those reptilian brains things, but not every. I keep hearing these things about cell phones now. Like a big push now is for there's split phone stores now, because people are realizing they're on their smartphones too much, so now they're just buying flip phones to keep them from doing it. So I mean, if you take a look at the progression, New York City school districts are looking at passing a cell phone policy, basically having no phones in high schools, and I just think we're kind of moving in that direction. So anyway,
Since this is the first reading, obviously there's a lot of feedback that yet needs to be garnered, but can I ask some questions?
absolutely.
So, did you guys talk to Gettysburg students and or? Okay, so we haven't actually talked to anybody up there to ask them how it's going?
No, just I've talked to leadership there, but nothing. I've talked to one of the first superintendents that put the honor pouches in. Talked to him about how it worked.
Okay. That's one question. The second question is, have we talked, because my concern in reading the policy in preparation for first reading tonight is, I'm curious, or I don't see how this prepares students who would be graduating like now and going into college. Because my understanding, colleges really don't have anything in place either. And if we're educators, we should be trying to help educate kids how to use the technology that's going to be in their face all day, every day after they leave here anyway. So that's a concern I have. And then the policing thing, this was in the handbook, the high school handbook. And I felt like it gave the autonomy to the teachers in the classroom. And I don't see that in the policy that it's written. So that's a concern I have. And I will be asking teachers for feedback on that, just because I want to understand it more. I feel like, I just don't feel like that's represented here. It's not to say it's a bad job, it's just my point of view. I'm just trying, those are some questions I have, and I don't know what other research can be done, but
I think those are great questions. I could offer you rebuttal after rebuttal on all of those, because I live it every day. But I won't do that because I want you to do, I want you to talk, you and I can maybe have a discussion privately sometime. But I also don't want to skew kind of what you find out. So by all means, talk to staff and talk to, people, and then maybe it's something, and then you and I can talk, or we can just have a pretty good discussion next month.
yeah, either way, I'm sharing your concerns because I want to be transparent with my concerns and my questions, and we'll have a discussion in our secretary.
Yeah.
Well, and we had discussed, during the creation of it, where if a teacher needed the students to use their cell phone for whatever reason in the classroom, that wouldn't be impacted by this, and maybe we just didn't include that in the actual policy. Because there were some instances where, like, certain websites that they want the students to use for certain things are not able to be accessed on the school computers, or if the Wi-Fi goes down or whatever. This is more just.
I would just say, as you're thinking through this and kind of asking questions and talking to people, just remember that it's easier to put something in that's a little more strict and pull back from it than to put something in that is very lenient and then try to start taking those things away, if that makes sense.
So I will, just to piggyback, off what Gary said, I have had some of those conversations already, and I will tell you one of the recurring themes in the conversation with teachers is because there isn't a standardized policy, the ones that do have policies end up having to post all the time. So I think that's the driver for that language. I would just say in general, thanks for putting it together. I'm going to respectfully dissent from your opinion, but I think this is an example of a hard right. And thanks to the leadership for being willing to fight that fight for a while until it gets straightened out. Because it's probably going to suck for a little bit, but I think it's a hard right. So.
Well, and I also think, kind of on the flip side, I understand your point, but I also think that there's the risk for abuse. There's going to be kids that are going to try to sneak it. There's going to be kids that are, you know what I mean? Like that, this is just a risk, I think. And again, distract. And I only say that to, because I'm sure many kids would probably be that way, but I have one of those kids that is that way. And I know it would be a problem, just an impulsive thing. Right? So I just think there's that risk for abuse if we have a hard policy, if they just know this is what it is, it's easier to follow. I don't think it can be too, you can't give too much, like I said, otherwise it's just so easy to find an exception to the rule to everything. Like sometimes you just put it down. But that's why we kind of felt there were times where maybe it's okay and appropriate during the day, but when in the classroom, and we could certainly look at adding something that says if there's a specific task the teacher's working on and it requires them to use it, that's fine. I mean, I feel like that's different. But for the most part, we are just trying to make sure that kids are in class and learning and not constantly distracted. And then we also talked about on the mental health side of that, I think with social media these days, there's just those platforms where it's one more place where a kid can get bullied, right? So it shuts down the opportunity for kids to be doing that during the school day through social media, essentially, at least for the majority of the school day. We just thought, as much as we can shut some of that down too, it may positively impact students' mental health too.
Okay, with that, this is the first reading, so.
Are there any, I mean, I would also encourage you, if you haven't, there's a book called The Anxious Generation. Take a look at that if you're a reader. And the author is Jonathan Haidt, Haidt, The Anxious Generation. Very eye-opening stuff there. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No problem. I was just saying, as the first reading, we have the one to basically come up with.
Yep.
And we'll discuss it again next month.
Absolutely.
Before adoption, so. I guess with that, we will move on to the superintendent report.
Okay, so I've got a couple of things. First of all, you guys have a copy of the superintendent evaluation there. I just wanted you to be able to see that before we, move forward with that. Generally, that happens in December. We'll talk a little bit about this in exec too, just because it's an executive item, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that you have this. And generally, the process is you guys will kind of work together on that, or however Mr. Weiland wants to do it as the chair. So anyway, that's a copy of basically the tool that we utilize. We generally do that in December, so I want you to have a copy of that. The large school group meets. That's where we met last month. We go over our position paper. Position paper is essentially a number of legislative items that we anticipate coming that we tell our lobbyists that we give her direction on. There's a few that are kind of always on there. Juvenile justice reform is generally on there a bunch. Some of those things that we hear. Obviously, funding is on there quite a bit. Right now, we're always trying to fight for. I don't know if you guys know, but the law essentially says that funding will be 3% or CPI, whichever is less. We're always trying to go, 3% or CPI, whichever is more. Right now, CPI is at 2.4%. They are kind of telling us it could be a lean year this year at the legislative side. So we're anticipating some of that, but of course we're fighting for that. A few more that are a little bit close to home. Obviously, IM 28 failed, so that was for schools really good. I was resounding, I think 70+%. Vouchers are going to come up. If you're not familiar with vouchers, essentially that's basically saying that the dollars that a public student or a public school receives for the student, those dollars will follow that student wherever they go. For example, let's just say a student's worth $7,200 to the Dell School District. That $7,200 would go, if they want to homeschool, that would go to the parent that homeschools them. If they want to go to a private school, it would go to the private school that is educating them. So clearly we're completely funded on state dollars, so that would annihilate public school districts. So we're completely fighting against school vouchers. We're looking for them. The extraordinary cost fund for special education has been at $4 million for, I think they raised it 10 years ago, maybe. Obviously, we know what inflation has done, so we're going to talk to the legislature about increasing that extraordinary cost fund. What the extraordinary cost fund does is there's basically a kitty of money at the state level where schools that you tax at the max, but you don't have enough dollars to cover your special education students. Outside of having to cover it with your general fund, you can appeal to the state and garner the dollars that are in that kind of kitty. They went over that $4 million mark for the last couple of years. They did get to keep reserves, so if they didn't go over that mark for a few years, that reserve is in there, but that reserve is gone now. So we're going to be looking at trying to get them to add a few more dollars there. A lot of talk about behavioral and mental health for our students. Trying to get more, there's $3, $4, $5 million the last couple of years that are in these funds for family therapies, but to be able to get that, you can only have to use a couple of providers, and it's just really difficult to get at those funds. So we're asking them to, take a look at that and try to figure out how can we get access to those funds a little more readily. A couple of school board things. last year a bill came, which we're anticipating again, that they wanted to essentially control when we could have board elections and bond elections. Obviously, we need to have bond elections when we need to have bond elections, and they want to put them on a certain date, so we're not for that. And then there was talk a little bit about forcing you to do, to have school board elections at one time, which is in like June. Clearly, there's a reason that doesn't work for us, kind of like prepare a little bit for that, for our fiscal year in July. So we're against that bill, we talked about that one. And then there's going to be a lot of talk on the ACT. You guys have heard that, they're going to use the ACT as far as an assessment that goes for starting in 2026. That'll be the state assessment for our juniors. Pretty sure that ship has sailed, that decision has been made. It was not made with the voice of superintendents or educators. It was just done by the Department of Ed. It was a bill by Tony Van Huysen last year. They essentially told him, don't worry about putting a bill in because the DOE is going to just put it in, which they did. So we think that ship has sailed. It's going to go that direction. Our concerns are, okay, we're going to do that, but what's the infrastructure surrounding that? Right now we have interim assessments for Smarter Balance as freshmen and sophomores that you can take. Well, are they going to pay for the interim ACT assessments? No. Okay, so we have to figure out how we're going to do that. There's no special education piece to that yet. So how are they going to do that? What accommodations can we use? They don't know. So there's a lot of legwork to do to go on the ACTs. So if we do anything, we might be proposing a bill to push that back a year just to give us some time to put some things together, but we'll see how that goes. So that's the biggies. There's a few, there's some little ones there. We want money for CTE. We want, some of those things that we'll see, but those are kind of the big ones. And then of course we don't, it's the legislature, so there'll be other things that come up that we haven't even anticipated and thought about. So that's the large school group stuff. Legislative days, I'll be at we always meet as superintendent group the day after the governor's address. So that'll be December 4th this year, and I have a legislative meeting the night before that. So we're kind of getting into that time. We'll start meeting with our legislators now that the elections are over, and we'll let them know what our 2 cents are. And we have a number of things in the end of January, February. Angie's going to try to make it maybe for the ASBSD if she can, and that delegate assembly. So that's just that kind of time of the year that we're getting into legislative, and then the budget, and then we get into negotiations and all that stuff. Pretty soon it's graduation. So, let's say that. Oh, sorry. I think that's all I really have, unless you guys have some questions. Well, on item C, 7:00 meeting, we do have a concert that night, high school Christmas concert that starts at 7. So we're going to probably need to address that start time. Let's have a note on that. That's all.
If there's no other questions for Mr. DeMoore, we do have some cleanup to do. Evidently, I have skipped the approval of our October meeting minutes. So we need a motion to approve the minutes of the meetings held October 9th and the 14th.
I make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Now back down, committee reports and/or board comments.
I do have a couple things. Just after a discussion about the risk management plan last month, I sort of started down that rabbit hole. It's a deep rabbit hole. Every 3-letter organization in the country has published a white paper on the things in crisis risk management problems that really kind of give us nightmares. And so I read through those. And I read through a couple of white papers that had to do with the efficacy of the recommendations that came out of the 3-letter organizations, right? My point being is that, I'm gonna come to you with some of that digestive and what you want. And the second part of that being, our board organization, the 5-letter acronym that I can never write, their continuing education, the webinar next month is on threat assessment teams, which is a recurring recommendation of the white papers. So I don't know if anybody in the policy board is audited that webinar to build through the
ASBs.
Yeah. The one I did, it's just a thought. And then the other thing, today is Veterans Day, so I thought, if you all don't mind, we got a number of staff that are vets. I'd like to read their names into the record. They're printed in our program this morning, but I'm gonna do it. We got Caleb Bunkers, Jim Cavagelli, Michael Garretts, Stan Grunick, Dennis Hanson, Gerald Klein, Christy Lee, and Daryl Long. So thanks to our staff for their service.
And also to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
As well.
You're officially a member of the staff, so.
I suppose. You can put my name on there if you want to. I'm at the top of it. It's up to you.
I thought the Veterans Day program was very nice, and I always love hearing the choir sing and I'm showing them they do a beautiful job.
It's probably a good job.
Very good.
And the elementary program is also great. I don't know how this is all wrangles 400 cats and gets them all to sing like that.
It's really
pretty impressive.
Great. And then Olivia, and who was the other one that played taps? I thought that was
Noah.
fantastic today too.
So good.
I was listening as yeah, and then I just want to throw in there too, obviously, congratulations to our volleyball team for making the state. It's awesome. They're so fun to watch. Great group of kids. And then also congratulations to the football team as well. They had a phenomenal season. Didn't end the way we wanted it to per se, but you guys should hold your heads high. You guys are a great team of kids in general and you represent them as well. So congratulations to you.
And then I have a question, I don't know if this would be a appropriate spot, or if I missed it. I was just wondering if we had an update on the softball coach filling that position.
We have a contract out.
And do we have a plan as far as like their off-season, their winter preparation? Usually they do get to
John will work with the coaches.
Working on that?
Yep, as soon as we get a contract back, should go meet with the coaches and
Awesome,
go through all that stuff, yeah.
very good, thank you.
One quick point of clarification, girls and women are not in the state.
No.
They're close.
I thought okay, sorry, my bad.
Sweet 16.
Yeah, okay.
You're thinking ahead.
Yeah.
What's the other thing?
I was talking to some, they said, when they want to say this.
Okay, are there any other board comments? Seeing none, our next regular meeting will be December 9th, but what time? Do we feel like we can get done in an hour? If so, we can move back to 6.
I would probably not be here, the next one, but I'll tell the committee and whatever, so whatever you guys decide on. We can work on
If it's safer to go 5:30, I can do that, I don't know if others can.
Probably I would say 5:30 probably.
How long will we be planning on making?
Well, no, but I mean, people probably want to get out of here about 6:30 to go get a seat for the,
Yeah.
you know, that thing goes up pretty good.
Yeah. 5:30?
Yeah, we're trying to make it go long.
Like, what's on the agenda?
No.
Okay, so our next regular meeting will be December 9th at 5:30. And with that, we just need an executive session for South Dakota Code 5 Law 1-27-1.5 section. So we need a motion to move into executive
I'll make that motion.
session. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
7:45.
We are now in executive session. Thank you all for attending. There may or may not be.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.